Right, so what is the consortium? The South East Wellbeing Consortium was set up in 2011. We're a group of voluntary sector organisations working more and more closely together but retaining our own kind of identities and independence. We're trying to share intelligence. We've got complementary service user groups. We've got lots of issues in common, so it felt like a sensible thing to do to kind of pool ourselves a little bit. It's also a way of trying to tackle the collaboration versus competition conundrum that we're all facing a little bit at the moment. So we're being asked to work ever more closely together, but at the same time actually also being asked to compete with each other for funding and so on. So we wanted to kind of experiment with a way of working that would help us deal with that a little bit. In terms of what the consortium is for, this is the purpose, improving health and social care of people across the southeast of England, and focusing particularly at the moment on those who are most disadvantaged with physical disabilities, learning difficulties or mental health issues. Here's a slightly fuzzy picture of some cliffs by way of indicating the southeast. So why the southeast rather than just Brighton and Hove? Well, we wanted to sort of think outside of our kind of normal ways of working, to look a little bit wider, open up new funding possibilities, to be able to learn from organisations and people in other areas, and to be able to contribute to that as well. Having said that, we are working primarily in Brighton and Hove at the moment, and East and West Sussex, and the project that you're going to hear about today is a very practical way of doing that. So who is the consortium? I realised after I'd sent this in that that's a terrible sentence, so please excuse my grammar. So who are we? Perhaps a slightly nicer way of saying that. Mind in Brighton and Hove Impetus, Fed Centre for Independent Living, 3 current partners. I've put you, question mark. So we've also got an independent chair, which has actually been really fantastic, and one of them, really invaluable to us. The consortium is not sort of intended to be a closed shop of people. It's intended to be something that grows and then sort of develops. But we are still quite in our infancy as an organisation, I think is fair to say, kind of still working out how we do it. So we're not actively seeking new members at the moment, but we will be in the future, and probably that will be around specific bidding opportunities or specific pieces of work rather than a general kind of open call, although we're always happy to talk. Especially if people have got ideas that we could contribute to, or talking about possibilities. So we love to talk, get in touch. Success. In 2012 we were successful in getting a funding proposal accepted by the Department of Health's very catchily titled Voluntary Sector Investment Programme 2012-13 Innovation Excellence and Strategic Development Fund, also known as Section 64 in old money, for those of us who remember that. And this is for the joint project that you're going to hear about today, so that's testing out voluntary sector-led approaches to personalised care and support services. And we've deliberately aimed that at the 3 audiences of individuals, organisations and statutory partners, because we think we need to step forward in all 3 of those areas to kind of make things real, and you'll hear a lot more about that from Katie in a minute. This is extra, added value. What more do we get from this than just what we kind of initially set out to do? And for us, with the Personal Choice Plus project, there's really significant added value both for the consortium but also for the Department of Health, because we get some support from that project for developing the consortium. And looking at the kind of real life ways of testing out these ways of working. For Department of Health there's the benefit because they're keen to support consortium working and to share that learning more widely across the country. So we're not kind of taking additional funds from this pot of money for consortium members per se, but really putting it into the consortium to develop those sort of processes and systems, and really importantly the evaluation of how it goes and capturing learning as we go along with the Personal Choice Plus project. So what have we learnt? Here's a few notes. I've taken these 4 points from the evaluation, or the early kind of findings of the evaluation from year 1, which is basically around the benefits of pooling knowledge and the value of having an independent chair. stakeholders broadly supportive of the idea of the consortium and the work that we're doing in the project, but on the kind of, the more difficult side of things, we hadn't really planned well enough about how we were going to actually put this into practice, and that's caused us a few problems along the way. Other things to say, which are really familiar things, it takes time to build partnerships. Changing the way we supply our services, the kind of technical, financial backroom side of that's actually really difficult. And there's lots of different models that we could look at, particularly around social enterprise. But yeah, a lot of this is kind of quite challenging territory, and it's made more difficult by a lack of capacity to plan or to kind of progress specific pieces of work, and that can make it quite hard to move quickly when you need to. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it's hard to collaborate if you're also competing on a different day. I think I probably would also add that we hadn't really been clear enough about how we hoped to work together from the outset, and we hadn't really thought about how to resolve disagreement where that arose, and those are things that have been really useful to kind of try and work out this year. And finally, for me, what's next? This is the contactless payment logo that you're starting to see all over the place, and it's not really meant to imply anything like paying for services, although that's probably something we all need to think about, but more to say this feels like the future. When I was swiping my card to buy my sandwich, I thought, oh my God, I'm living in the future. But for the consortium, the future and what is next, I think it's really about consolidating what we've achieved so far, reflecting on what we've learned and making kind of changes and making improvements. Committing to thinking about those challenges that feel very familiar and thinking about how to kind of approach those in new ways, but all the time keeping our service users at the heart of what we do, and really continuing to build those trusting relationships between organisations, between ourselves and with potential future members. The end.